Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast. And today we'll be discussing whether English proficiency is a hidden barrier to inclusivity in higher education and employment, or whether it is simply another skill that people can learn. So, think about two students with the same academic profile, with the same ambition, and the same potential. One grew up speaking fluent English, while the other studied in a regional language and learned English later. Do they really have the same opportunities when it comes to admissions, interviews, or the workplace? We are a group of students from IIM Calcutta and we'll be exploring the different perspectives on this question. So let's begin. Before we get into the discussion, let's first understand what we mean by the term hidden barrier. If a barrier isn't obvious, why is it often difficult to recognize?
Because you dress it up as merit. No one says that we rejected you for your accent. They say that you didn't communicate articulately enough or you didn't communicate clearly. And even though this language feels very neutral, it just means that you don't sound like us. You aren't one of us. So it's just a barrier which is hidden in language that sounds fair but is not.
I would like to add on to the point by stating that English in many countries is not a talent, it's a tag. You can tell that the person had the privilege of being educated, was tuition, had English speaking parents. So English speaking is kind of a privilege in disguise in many of these countries.
Here I can give a personal example. Like in my undergrad first year, everything from teaching to slides, everything was in English. So I am able to understand very well. But during the discussion, I had to translate my thinking before speaking. So people think that I am slow and not that sharp. So, but the real problem was the language, not the thinking.
Look, I get your point, but let me push back a little. See, universities and companies are not inventing English for fun. Our textbooks, our academia, our research, and even our corporate clients, English is a very large part of that. If we admit someone who is not proficient enough in English, we are just setting them up for failure.
I'd also like to add that from a hiring perspective, this barrier may be hidden to the enforcers themselves. Like, no interviewer goes in thinking that I want to be biased today. They just kind of select based on the fluency and the confidence of an interviewee in that 30-minute interview based on their skills and knowledge.
I feel like this is where honestly the tension lies. English is useful. I'm not going to pretend it otherwise. But why are we shifting from can this person do the work to can this person say the kind of the work has to be done? And I feel like these are completely different questions. And in between this gap, I feel like the talent is being lost.
So, we've understood what a hidden barrier looks like. Let's now look at how English proficiency can influence access to higher education.
Fair question. A standardized English test feels very objective. And I admit the ugly part of it. Like, these tests cost a lot. There's a lot of money involved in coaching and preparation. And let's say there's a bright student from a rural area, he would probably not perform as well because of being underconfident compared to a student from an urban area who is more confident. So these tests are judging your confidence and your preparation, not your actual English speaking ability.
And these tests measure you in this narrow slice of time, right? It's judging you in this artificially timed performance. A brilliant engineer who freezes in a English speaking test isn't a bad engineer, but the system quietly just decides that he is.
And the problem is not just with the entrance, but once you are in, everything from presentation, slides, and the professor lecture is like a fast automatic English. So while you are busy with translating those and learning, your friends are easily learning other things, and you feel like you don't feel included there. And I think admitted and included are two different things here.
That's the key distinction here. Inclusion and getting access. I feel speaking okay English will get you the access into these rooms. It will open the gates for you, but you will not feel included.
And I feel like that is where the irony lies. Universities recruit global, diverse cohorts to look inclusive, but at the end of the day, they run a single linguistic register, which is English. And then they wonder why the same students stay silent in the seminars. We open the gates for these students, but tend to forget them when we enter the room.
And what's worse is that these quiet students, they have lesser preparation now in terms of the interviews as well, because they've not been speaking during their classes. So this kind of a classroom gap becomes a career gap eventually, even before they graduate.
In fairness, I believe that some of us are helping to change this by judging the students' content over the polish, by judging, by not gatekeeping, by not treating English as a gate to be cleared, but rather treating it as a skill to be built.
So, we've discussed how English proficiency can shape experiences in higher education. Let's now shift our focus to employment and understand how language influences hiring and career growth.
So, I'll be honest, often, yes, it does matter because in a 30-minute interview, a candidate who is fluent in English and confident in his skills may be chosen over a candidate who is quieter but more competent but cannot get his views across. So, this is a bit of a bias, but it is something that has existed in our society.
And this compounds over time. A weaker English means a lower starting title, will lead to slower promotions, an entire career bent just because of the first impression and not because of ability.
So this is not true every time because there are certain roles where communication is the job. Like for a client-facing consultant or a teacher or someone in marketing, you do need to have the necessary skills in English. But let's say that there is someone who is really skilled in technology and I do not hire him because he is not as good at small talk, then I'm missing out on a really good hire.
Exactly. Why don't we match the language needs to the needs of the actual role? Most roles just need a clear enough to collaborate kind of fluency, not a flawless native fluency. We have very much inflated the needs more than what the role actually needs.
And we should stop treating accent as an error because the purpose of communication is to understand. You can still understand with an accent, but people sometimes just because it doesn't sound like them, and accent can be derived from their native language background and doesn't tell how good you are at the job.
And I'll tell you, this issue comes in our applications too. So, for example, a brilliant candidate who has a really good profile, but they had some grammar slips in their cover letter, they would get flagged. But a weaker candidate who had possibly a ghost written CV, which is well polished, that CV gets outshines the stronger candidate. So this issue comes, and we are essentially screening for editing skills, not for their actual profile and their actual intelligence.
The truth is that this is the future anyways. Most of the English conversation now actually takes place between two non-native English speaking students or persons rather than native speaking English. Perfect native English is more of an outdated than what is the standard right now, and is one of the few things that even when it's recruitment policies is now shifting towards non-native speaking English rather than perfect native English.
So, we've discussed the challenges in both higher education and employment. And the next question is what practical changes can make these systems more inclusive?
Structured interviews would be a good way to go, where there is a standard set of questions for everyone and we are judged only on the content and the communication skills wherever the job requires it. So the bias will begin to shrink once we stop judging on like a vibe.
See, in admissions, we should judge their character and their intelligence, not their polish. And we should let them grow into the language rather than screening them out in the admission process itself.
Test the skills that the job actually requires. If the job is writing a report, then test writing a report. Don't make the person speak in a very artificially stressful situation, which usually tests nerves more than ability.
And we should normalize the multilingual space. Let people speak in their language and or imperfect English without being judged. And we can start with also start with training the interviewers through different accents. It is a small step, but it can make a huge difference.
Right. I also feel like we should drop the filter like native like communication from job ads worldwide. Rather, we can think of other filters like something like effective communication. That feels more fairer, and honestly, it is more accurate to find the kind of work you are looking for.
Let me put an uncomfortable one here. Whatever you all are saying requires a lot of effort and money. Support requires money, and standards are important. But if we keep calling privilege as merit, we will be losing out on a lot of talent pool. And this does not account fairly.
So I mean, we can't take it too far as well. Like, important. It is important to have good communication skills so that members in a team can properly, like, signal what their needs and requirements are. But the goal is not exactly to have no standard; it's to set the right standard where everyone is effectively able to communicate, but we don't need perfect English as one of the, kind of like a barrier to enter.
So, is English proficiency a hidden barrier to inclusivity? Based on today's discussion, our answer is yes, more often than we realize. Not because English itself is the problem, but because fluency is often treated as a measure of ability, even when it does not reflect a person's true potential. English is undoubtedly an important skill in higher education and the workplace. However, the discussion also highlighted that the focus should be on assessing people's knowledge, skills, and potential fairly while providing opportunities to develop language proficiency rather than using it as a barrier to opportunities. Creating a more inclusive system does not mean lowering standards. It means ensuring that we are measuring the right things and giving capable individuals the opportunity to succeed. Thank you for listening to our podcast. We hope that the discussion has given you a new perspective on the role of English proficiency in higher education and employment.